I never know when this is going to start. So we're live with Lawrence Ingraham of
Hey,
50/50, Back to Blading, Chroma, Compass, all sorts of stuff. Welcome
all
to the
sorts of
show,
stuff.
Lawrence.
Thanks for having me on. It's
Oh, you're
been a while.
welcome.
Looking forward to this.
It's been a really long time since we've talked, but we've known each other for close to like 30 years or 27 years
Just
or
about.
something, right? Like
It was
since
probably 90.
95.
Yeah, 95, 96.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, for people not familiar with me and Lawrence's history in rollerblading, we both ran online magazines in the mid to late 90s. I did
Mm-hmm.
Scum magazine, and Lawrence did Sequence magazine,
That's right.
and those were really cool times. There was a lot of online zines at that time, and print zines, because Scum magazine was also print zine. I don't
Hmm.
think you did print zines, did you?
No.
So yeah, so I had the print and the web, and then there was ones like 817. You had
Hmm.
Sequence, like another like the Sequence
Yeah,
ripoff.
those jerks.
BMag started back then as an email magazine.
Yeah,
Uh, like literally, you got an email with some news and stuff, and that was BMag. So that was pretty cool.
very
Um,
ahead of the game. I mean, email newsletters are huge now. So, kudos to the guys back then.
yeah, I mean, even us, you know, doing those websites, and you did the message board back
Hmm.
then in the early days of the internet, when you still had bulletin boards and all
Hmm.
that stuff. Like how did you get into wanting to do a web magazine, and like what motivated you to do that back then?
Yeah. So I was over at San Jose State and I was a freshman, I think, but I was skating probably for 2 years already. And our scene in the Bay Area was really strong. This is where, I grew up skating in Alameda with Jason Marshall, Nick Strang, Kel McKenzie. That was like our crew. And I knew what we were doing was special. Like we were skating at a pretty high level. Um, but when you would see print magazines, there were a few issues. One, it took 4 months from a photo to be taken to actually make it into a print magazine and have it delivered on your doorstep. And while skating was moving so fast, tricks were being invented every day. The stuff that we would see in the magazines were 6 months old, and we never really saw a sequence, which is where the name came from, of tricks. It was always a single shot because, back then film didn't shoot as fast as, you can now. You didn't have burst mode or something like that back then.
Right.
So we never really knew what the tricks looked like. You would see somebody doing a fakie air. Like I remember there was a really famous photo, or at least for me, a very memorable photo of Dave Payne doing a fakie air in some skate park in Pennsylvania, and he's just kind of like floating in the air. I'm like, I have no context. I have no idea what he's doing. He's just kind of like, I'm in the air. And that's when you kind of think, well, what if there was a sequence of him coming up,
Uh-huh.
how high he was going, boosting off, and it was like, okay, well, we can do that. But how do you distribute it? We didn't have the money to do a proper print magazine. I'd done newsletters in the past for video games, and I was always like looking for ways to write and get articles out there and just kind of share what you would call a creator now. Like it's always kind of been in my blood. And at that time, the internet just started. I mean,
Right.
really, it was AOL, and then it started being like the internet. And living in San Jose, I had a lot of access to people who were knowledgeable on the subject, and I found a few books. And I would go to different websites, and I would view source, and I would reverse engineer how to, do loading GIFs and animated GIFs and table layouts and things like that. And said, well, I can do this. Like I could just copy their code and make my own website. So the first issue of Sequence was born, and I remember interviewing Jason Marshall for my first interview. The second thing, I think we interviewed Tom Heiser, and we had photos of John Julio and John Starr because they were also living in San Jose at the time, and that's really the beginning of it. I think I met you around that time. Just again, we were kind of doing the same thing at the same time, but in different areas of the world. We didn't really know it,
Mm-hmm.
and it was a network. I mean, it was the internet, and it's so comical to say now, 30 years later, but having the local scene being represented on a website and all that you would need to do was FTP some images and files over to a server, and then it's up and running, was groundbreaking. I mean,
Oh,
we
for
were
sure.
doing things, on Friday, and you would see them on Saturday.
Yeah, it
And that
was
was like,
unbelievable.
"Ooh, yeah, how does that happen?" Yeah.
But at the same time, you had mentioned the animated GIFs and the photos
Mhm.
and stuff. Like, you couldn't have very good resolution photos back then.
Mm-mm.
Everything was like very pixelated, very tiny.
Yeah.
Looking back at some of those animated GIFs now, I'm like, wow, they look so bad. You couldn't really actually see what's happening necessarily in them. I mean, you could kind of comprehend it,
Yeah,
but it's very primitive compared to what you can do today.
no
And
doubt.
I remember kind of even with Scum, like being on the forefront of doing those animated GIF type of things and also learning how to do sequences, like we had mentioned. Actually laying
Mhm.
out sequences in the software that was available at the time, because none of that stuff was very user friendly back then.
No, no.
you know and for me, it was, like you said, with the locals scene. My whole thing at first was just to promote the Austin scene, then
Mhm.
Houston, and then Texas as a whole, then the South, and then it kind of
Yep.
got so popular that it ended up being this global thing. I started doing the videos with it, and the print zine, though, I started. See, for me, I started print zine at the same time that I started
Mhm.
the web scene, because I always want to do. My goal was always to have a print magazine,
Mm.
um, which if I hadn't ended up moving to San Diego working for Daily Bread, that's probably what would have happened,
Hmm.
because I did Scum Magazine all the way up until I went to Daily Bread. I don't
Yep.
remember exactly when Sequence ended.
It was when I started working for 50/50. Yeah, so it was 98, maybe 99,
Okay,
and
so
it was
around the same
probably,
time.
yeah, probably the same reasons too. Like, I would have articles that were gossip, and they would be, sometimes, I didn't filter myself, so I would say things about different people in the industry that, I thought were bad ideas or whatever. And when you're part of the industry, you've gotta check yourself. You
Right.
can't necessarily be completely honest, because you don't want people angry at you. And a lot of these rumors that I heard, I would know for a fact. Like, I would have the skates in my hand, and I couldn't write about it. And it was like, well, what's the point of doing a
Hmm.
zine, an online zine, if I'm not going to do the stuff that I really love doing? I could transition to interviews and stuff, but really what I loved was the speculation, was the news and rumors, the things like that.
Right.
And I
I mean,
think
news
Daily Bread
rumors
did
are
a
the
good
big
job with
thing.
interviews, so no
Hmm.
point.
I mean, Daily Bread also the news and rumors, disinformation, but at the same time, disinformation. Well, it's the magazines took a long time to come out, the print magazines. But
Mhm.
when I was doing the zines, I don't know about you, but it would be about once a month I would have a zine, like a issue of Scum magazine, come out on the
Yep.
internet. So it still was a
Yeah,
little wait time.
sure.
And the rumors were gossip. For me, they were a
Yeah,
lot of gossip, and some was complete bullshit.
yeah,
Like just kind of made up stuff, right?
for sure.
Just for entertainment purposes. I did At that time, there was a lot of print magazines worldwide. One of them was Inline Magazine in Germany,
Mhm.
and I actually wrote their disinformation for them throughout the 90s. Um, so that was cool. But
Yeah,
yeah,
very cool.
I didn't quit doing. Well, I didn't willfully quit doing Scum Magazine. When I moved to San Diego to work for Daily Bread, I was going to continue doing Scum Magazine on the side. But once I got to
Mhm.
San Diego, Angie Walton was like, "You can't do that anymore."
Yeah.
Blah 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 blah. So that's why it didn't happen. It almost had a resurgence. I was going to do something with John in around
Mhm.
2003 or whatever. It didn't happen.
Mhm.
Nathan Moore asks a question, and he wants to know: are any of these zines available online? So, what about you, Lawrence? Do you have
Yeah.
your old zines all? Are they
I
available
have
online?
an archive.org Wayback Machine, that is an archive of them. If you Google Sequence Magazine, and my name, you'll probably find them. There's actually a post on Back to Blading's website, I think in our blog section, which doesn't exist. But when I started Back to Blading, it was all about the blogs, and just trying to write before I started making videos. And I did write a whole blog about Sequence Magazine, everything that went into it, and the message board and things like that. And there is a link there to a fairly uh, well curated archive, that you can jump around to the different pages. A lot of the links are going to break, and as Jan said, unless your monitor is 1024 by 768. I mean, that was probably a luxury, right? It was like 800
Hmm.
by 600 back then. Um, they're probably going to look so bad. But
Right.
yeah, most of that's up there. Just do a Google search for Sequence Magazine, Lawrence, and you'll probably find it.
The Wayback Machine website or archive,
Yeah.
I discovered that, I don't know, a couple years ago. And I actually found a lot of my old stuff that I'd lost through the Wayback Machine, because if you're not familiar with it, you can pretty much search a certain time range of a website because the websites got backed up like to this Wayback Machine. So if there's like old, like, like the, rat tail sites and stuff, you can find some of that stuff on there, which is pretty cool. Like, I had no idea.
I use it for reverse date lookup for products. So you can do a search for, like, I was doing an episode of Gear Talk last week about, I think it was about the K2 Fatty. No, maybe it was, I don't know which. It was one of the skates, and I was trying to figure out what time they came out, and I could find a reference to it, like a news release for when it was, like a press release for like the Fatty Pro or something like that. And I could find that that page, and I threw it in the Wayback Machine. So then I could go and see when it was first crawled, which ended up being 95 or 96.
Oh,
or
wow.
whatever it was.
That's great. That's a great idea for research.
Such a great idea. Yeah. So I use the Wayback Machine all the time. It's a super valuable resource. Donate if you've got a few bucks. I think they're a nonprofit, but their goal is just anything that's digital, they want to archive it. And it includes websites and video games and manuals and old software, like you name it. If it's digital, they want to archive it. Super, super valuable.
I'll go ahead and throw a link to the Wayback Machine in the description below, and I'll try to link it to the Sequence ones and see if I can find the Scum Magazine ones. I also actually have all the Scum Magazine website files on a CD. What I don't have is any of the print files, which is a bummer because I don't actually have the higher resolution photos of anything from back then.
Oh, yeah.
Looking back through some of the I did a lot of interviews, with Scum. And going back through some of the interviews, like even the reviews of music and products, and there's a lot of stuff looking back. It's like kind of embarrassing, like
with all this,
it's just the way you like describe stuff, or just stuff that's like, it's kind of offensive, but you didn't think about it at that time or at that age,
I feel you.
Right? So like, so it's like, I kind of want to put some of that stuff back up, but I'm kind of like, want to edit it a little bit,
I think if you don't look back and you're embarrassed in what you did, maybe not content wise, but definitely from the skill perspective, I mean, you haven't grown, this is a snapshot of who you were in the 90s. Doesn't indicate who you are now.
So onto the media, right? So we had a lot of zines back then. We had a lot of magazines worldwide, a lot of media. Then coming into the early 2000s, a lot of those websites dropped. But print magazines stuck around a little bit, and then those started fading out, obviously. Now we've jumped forward to today, and you have more blog sites. Not that many. You had Blader Union doing their thing for a while.
Yep.
But then they faded away. And then I was doing Big Wheel Blading, or I'm still doing it. Not as heavy as I was, but there's some web media, but not much. I feel like it's pretty much all gone to YouTube.
Yeah.
Like people, my opinion is people just like don't really like to read as much or something. It's more like visually want to see it or hear it.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that? Like, changes.
I mean, you're right. I think print is. I wish that there were a way to bring back print. I am good friends with Frank Stoner, who is an amazing writer, and I would love nothing more than to give him money to write articles for Rollerblading again. And I can't find a purpose yet. I don't think in my day, I don't think of a time that I sit down and read. And I don't think that I'm alone in that. If anything, I'm reading on my phone, and it's Twitter, or it's a Facebook post, or it's somebody who sends me a link to an article that is interesting about something, but I don't go to a place to read. And that's just the way that we've changed. I think social media is such a gnarly drug that you get this instant gratification of seeing the trick, or, I don't TikTok, but I can definitely see the allure to it, getting these quick bite-size whatevers. And with the algorithm being so strong, you can start getting down this rabbit hole of air fryer and dog training videos, and it's
Right.
like, 2 hours later, you don't know where the hell you are.
No, it's crazy.
And I think that's the present. That's not the future. That's where we are. I
Hmm.
don't think there's and I hate to say it, but I don't think there's a need for print yet. I don't think there's a consumer for print. And as rose-colored glasses we might be, I've got a bunch of old Daily Breads here that I love to leave in the bathroom here at the warehouse so that people can read them when they're, not on their phone on the toilet. You know what I mean?
Hmm.
But that's just a very small section of their time. Now, if we brought back a magazine, would it sell? Like, is there a chicken and egg sort of thing? So if, or I don't know what the analogy is, but if we were to produce the magazine, would people read, or is there no demand for magazines because we don't have any?
I
I
mean,
don't know.
technically, one magazine still exists. Granted, it's more like a yearly thing, or
Yeah,
8 months. I feel like I've always thought an annual type of magazine it would be interesting. Like a
yeah,
photo annual, maybe interviewing some of the people who did some of the best stuff in the year. Like maybe who did the craziest section or the craziest
mhm,
trick in a year, end of the year type of thing. More like a coffee table book, kind of like the books you get
yeah,
with videos now. A lot of
yes,
video, instead of having DVDs, you have a video comes out and then they have a book.
yep,
Um, I usually buy most of these books. None of them are really like they're mainly just photos. So
yeah,
I find them kind of boring generally. It would be cool if they had a little bit more write up inside of these
yeah,
books.
yeah,
Like because you look through these photos and it's like I want a little bit more, but they're
yeah,
cool, and I usually buy them all because they're collectible, and I
yep,
want to support those guys. But I feel like having something annually, um, or a little bit more in depth with the videos would be really cool. I know some people have been doing some print zines in the past couple of years, and I try to pick those
hmm,
up and a little bit more artsy and stuff. But I mean, my opinion is there's room for it, but it needs to be done. Nobody's going to advertise it anymore. That's the thing. Like,
right,
getting brands to advertise. I mean, you own brands, right?
right,
But you haven't advertised in. There's nothing to advertise in, really. You look at
no,
Daily Bread back in the day. Ads were pretty expensive.
yeah, for sure,
Brands paid a lot of money for ads, and doing like big wheel blading and websites like that. Asking companies for ads now when it's a minimal amount of money, they don't
yeah,
want to pay it, right? They were paying
yeah,
thousands and thousands of dollars for this print ad back in the day, and they won't even pay $100,
yeah,
to support stuff. So I think one reason see a lot of websites promoting skating or zines is because most of the industry is not going to support it. So it's
it's
like
fair,
if you can't everyone's we're all old now, right?
right,
It's like I mean, I still do stuff for free. I've always done stuff for not making money because I love skating. But
sure,
there's very few people like me or
yeah,
that dedicate their time to that.
right.
It's not really worth it for them. I just it's always been my passion, and I
I
like
do
doing it.
think there is. I mean, there's a recent example. So Roller Warehouse has been in business for what, 28 years, something like that.
Hmm.
And anybody who grew up remembers getting the Team Paradise catalog, and then after that they got the Roller Warehouse catalog. And those were the phone books of blading. So you would get that, and it was once a year, twice a year, whenever, and it would just tell you what's coming out,
Hmm.
what's available, etc. Roller Warehouse had a catalog up until COVID. And when COVID hit, they, first of all, anything that was in the catalog, they were supposed to have a catalog beginning of 2020. That was supposed to be I don't know if I should be telling you this, but I'm sure Gil doesn't care. Um, they should have had a catalog beginning of 2020. And for me, as a brand, I love advertising in the Roller Warehouse catalog. They will list your products, but if you want something big, like they'll put everything in there. But if you want to have a bigger presence, you pay. And it's just like free, not free, but it's part of your, as a brand, to have a position in the essentially a magazine, but it's a catalog. And the mailing list that Roller Warehouse had must have been 10, 20, 50,000 people, right? I mean, it's anybody who's ever ordered from Roller Warehouse over the years. And I was getting them even though I hadn't, rollerbladed in years. So they must be reaching so far. they stopped doing it. And the main reason why they stopped doing it in COVID was there was nothing to advertise. During 2020, we had this crazy boom where I'm sure everybody remembers you couldn't find skates in any size, let alone the size that you wanted and the skates that you wanted. And then when skates would come in, they would sell out immediately. So there was no stock. So why would you have a print catalog if there's nothing to sell?
Right.
Add to that, it's 3 months, from us submitting ads and products up until the time that they would print. And a lot of us, maybe that catalog has a lifespan of 6 months or so. A lot of us move so quick. Like I release products every couple of months that by the time the catalog lands, because my quantities are small and my products turn over so fast, the stuff that was in the catalog might not be available.
Yeah, I was actually thinking that would be an issue for you.
It is. The point is that we don't have Roller Warehouse catalog anymore. They've stopped doing it. And from what I understand, their reasoning was it just costs so much and we do so much more business just by keeping our website and doing social media. Like we would rather invest that time and money into keeping our website up to date, doing more posts on Facebook and Instagram. And that's where it goes because nobody has that need to get something in the mailbox and then sit down and look at it. Now, I think that there is a market for it. I think there is a way that we could bring back magazines, but I don't have I don't have a business mind about it. I don't think that we could get advertisers. I don't think it would be anything more than a passion project. And
right.
I'm the guy that always wants to make sure that people are taken care of. Like if you do any work for me, you get something in return. And I don't know that there are a lot of people out there that would just do it for free, but who's the market for it,
Right. I mean, the thing with the catalog, stopping the catalog, I mean, my mom somehow got on some mailing lists and she gets, 30 catalogs a week from something, right? I mean, right. Catalogs are still a thing, and catalogs are nice because when a kid gets a catalog, they can circle what they like and show it to their parents. You can't really do that on a website, on like the internet. Like you can't circle something and take it to them. Your catalog, you can circle your stuff, give it to your parents. You got your presents for the year. I also feel like, I don't know how much it costs for them, but I mean, I remember we thought that it was pretty expensive to do those ads in the Roller Warehouse catalog. And, we did them for, Vicious and 4x4 and them and Ground Control, like a lot of money, so I feel like I don't, they were getting a lot of money. I don't know how much extra they had to pay. I don't feel like I don't know if that's the real reason, I mean, I feel like that should have paid for most of that printing. I mean, it wasn't like necessarily great quality paper or anything like that,
Yeah. It would be a great question to ask. I think the biggest benefit for me with having the catalog, like you said, to be able to have your kids circle things that they want or have your parents circle things that they want is my backpack that I bring to the skate park has a stack of Roller Warehouse catalogs. So I can take out a Roller Warehouse catalog when I see that random rollerblader at the skate park who has no idea who Alex Broskow is, right? They're just out there living their best life on some crazy Zetra blades or whatever. Maybe they have a wrist guard on or, whatever. And they don't know anything. They don't know the tricks. They don't know the brands. They don't know where to look for skates. They don't know what skates are different. They see my skates and they're like, who is this guy? Like this guy from the future with these crazy skates that jumps on things. Like I'm just cruising around the transitions. And I'm like, I find their parents and I say, here's a catalog and here's some stickers. This is what we do. Like, it seems like your kid likes doing what we do. This is an example of what we do. And here's a plethora of items that you can find that are designed for what he or she wants to do. That was, for me, the biggest sell to Roller Warehouse, other than being able to reach that 40,000 people or whatever that I would never, they aren't on my Instagram. They aren't on my YouTube. Like, it's another market that you can go to.
As far as getting those magazines, giving out to people, like you said, the skate park, Roller Warehouse has always added extra magazines in a box. They just, when you've got a shipment, they gave you a handful. And almost everyone I know took those magazines and did give them out to people at the skate park like you did.
So smart, yeah.
So, it got out there, so it feels like it's still, I mean, especially now when there's more interest in skating. We were at the skate park today, and we actually had the rollerblade van there for the session. And we got 3 of the 6 people outside of that weren't rollerblading at the park on some rollerblade skates at the skate park. So people have
Nice.
interest in it.
Sure.
So I think that giving those people a physical magazine, and that's the thing with the physical magazine, like they can just like if you tell them to go to a website, they probably won't go.
Yeah, they won't.
And and scrolling through magazine or website looking at the skates and stuff, it's like way more confusing than having that
No doubt.
catalog in your face, and you can be like, oh, those shirts are cool or whatever.
Yeah.
We got a couple questions. This is going to be more towards you from
Okay.
Ronnie Rask. Why don't rollerblading companies advertise on social media?
There's a couple reasons.
You,
So we do advertise, and I actually get a lot of comments on the boosted ads on Instagram. That in essence, they all boil down to I can't get mad at this ad because I actually like it, and it's like I'm not even mad. Like it's fine that you were advertising. It's cool. We advertise whenever we have a signature product, and it's usually on Instagram that we do ads. And we don't spend a ton of money, maybe $20, $40 for an ad. It's not a big push. The reason that I don't think that it is a huge return on investment for my brands is that my brands are very specific. And I feel like the markets that are looking for 50/50 Chroma or Compass either already know those brands or they know where to get those brands, or they're, already skating another brand and it's still in that ballpark. Me trying to sell a UFS big wheel skate to a general Instagram market is a frame, let alone skate. A big wheel UFS frame to a general market on Instagram is going to be an uphill battle. I don't think that that's a problem. I do think that there's potential, especially for somebody like a rollerblade or like a power slide, to put together some ads that can do more brand awareness. I would love to see more advertised sponsored content from the big brands that can actually reach out.
and like shops like Inline Warehouse and Roller
I think
Warehouse.
shops could do it as well. Yeah. Especially during boom times when people are just looking and they see rollerblades, but they don't know where to get rollerblades. Like a good example will be when that Barbie movie comes out, right? So when the Barbie movie comes out, there's a scene that Barbie and Ken are on the boardwalk skating, and we've all seen the spy shots, right? They're out there skating, and then Will Ferrell and the henchmen are coming up after them and skating after them. While that is in pop culture, it would be great for a shop to say, "Do you need rollerblades?" and have somebody skating on the boardwalk doing something similar to that, right? Like recreate that scene and then show here's where you can get them. Unfortunately, I think brands like Impala are going to eat our lunch in there. First of all, they're cool and hip and they know the Instagram world. Second of all, they're $160 boot on, or $160 complete or something like that. We don't have skates that can compete on those price points. I think all of the brands I represent definitely are at a higher price.
But when you look at like rollerblades, Zetra blades at $129, it might not be the best rollerblade, but it's a hell of a lot better than that Impala skate.
It is. It doesn't look like a rollerblade. I think that's
Yeah.
the biggest problem with the rollerblade Zetra blade is it looks like a shoe. And where Impala, I don't want to derail us too much, but I think where Impala did a good job is they made a better looking cheap rollerblade than any other company has ever made a rollerblade.
Well,
like it is a plastic boot. It looks like what people think of when they think of a rollerblade.
Exactly.
And it's
it looks like a
$140 or
rollerblade from back in the day. And it's literally a rollerblade from the 90s.
It is.
That's same liner. I mean, terrible quality, I feel like it should be realistically a $60 skate.
Oh yeah.
For what you're getting. But what they did is the colors. And I told, I've taught some people rollerblade. I'm like, what you guys did so good in the 90s, 80s was your marketing, your branding, your art. The art was amazing. You look at the fanny packs, the t-shirts, the bags, everything they did so much cool retro stuff. And you look at that was a band Rollerblading from Arizona. The brand, he did t-shirts, he did some kind of retro rollerblade style stuff with the colors.
Sure.
And rollerblade, had all this cool stuff. They should have brought it back 5-6 years ago. Yeah. Instead, a company like Impala comes with a retro look and just slays it. And then obviously you have Rossi's coming doing the same thing. And the Rossi's, skates also really colorful and cool. Uh, Better quality, I'm
Sure.
sure. And and they actually put money into blading.
Sure.
Impala does not put anything into
No.
blading at all.
I do
You know,
wonder, do you think Impala advertised on social? I
probably
gotta assume
so.
they do,
Probably
right?
so. So
Yeah.
my thing with if you're a big brand like Impala
Yeah.
and you have a lot of money, you probably do a lot of social. Like I try to do some advertising with Big Wheel Blading on Facebook,
Mhm.
Facebook ads, and it literally those ads only targeted some people in India that don't skate, so it was like complete waste of money.
Sure.
And all these people posting like, "What is this?" Blah blah blah. So it's like, if they can't find skaters or it's like it's
Yeah.
not worth advertising on that venue. That's why advertising on the websites or on YouTube channels,
Mhm.
sponsoring podcasts or hosts, for some product placement or something like that feels
Sure.
like a good way to go in there.
Sure.
Um, let's see here. Pucky notes to know if there's any updates on Law's new skate. Now, if you do have updates, we could talk about it at the very end if you want to talk about it.
That's
If
fair.
not, we can
We can
move.
always talk about it. I love to talk. It's a
Ha-
process that I'm on the very early stages of,
All
but
right. Well, how
we'll
about we
talk about
talk
that.
about it? We can
Yeah.
talk about it right now. Let's talk about it right
We can
now.
talk about it right now. Sure.
Okay. So I want to know how did this how did this happen? I mean, I
Sure.
know Clark Kirkman
Yep.
has his skate, and the whole dream was always skater owned skate brands,
Right.
but those were plastic injected. Always just thought was plastic injection,
Right.
right? And Clark's doing a carbon fiber, and
Yep.
your skate's carbon fiber as well.
It's plastic.
It's
Yeah.
plastic, so
Yeah.
you are actually living the dream of a plastic injected skate.
Yeah, or
So,
nightmare. I mean, depends on your perspective, I guess.
well, I think it's pretty cool. I think you're doing all this stuff by yourself too, I believe,
Yep.
which is really awesome. So, first of all, I'd like to hear personally just about your skate a little bit, why you decided to do it, and then you can kind of give us any updates you have
Sure.
on it.
And I'll say that I'll ask you to come back on when it's here, and
Mhm.
I'll be able to share a lot more.
Okay.
It's still in very early stages, but we are in the process. Money's been sent, molds are about to be opened, so it's happening.
Sick. Congratulations.
When was it? Thanks. Yeah, it's anxiety ridden, but it's exciting. We got a ton of questions from people who asked, well, you've got frames, you've got wheels, you've got bearings, you've got laces. Why don't you have a skate? And it was kind of the missing piece in the puzzle, where I always look at the skate as, and I think maybe you can relate to this, back in the days when we started skating, a skate was a skate, and you would just buy the skate and that's how you would skate them. And some people wouldn't even replace the wheels, but at the
Oh,
minimum, maybe you would replace wheels and that's
we
it.
had people in Austin that would skate a skate until
Hmm.
the wheels completely wore out, and then just buy a new skate.
Right. Because a skate was a thing. It was
Uh-huh.
like buying a sandwich. And it's just like, this is my sandwich. And it's like, as soon as it's done, I'll just buy another one.
Yeah, it's a great analogy.
And well, I don't know so much. It's a thing. I think of it as a shell, and I think of it as a liner, and I think of it as a shock absorber and parts that create this skate. And of all of those dozen parts, I make 7 of them already. I've got axles, I've got spacers, I've got frames, I've got bolts, I've got laces, I've got wheels, I've got bearings. What's missing, right? So I've got a shell, I've got a cuff and the hardware to attach the cuff. I've got a liner, some sort of shock absorber potentially, and a buckle. So it's like, well, why don't I just make those? And then I'll have a skate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I started thinking about that back probably 4 years ago, I think 3 years ago, when I started making wheels. And I said, well, there's got to be a future where I make the whole skate, right? I mean, I've got everything else. Even if I just brought in some boots, I could sell this whole component and at least offer it to customers. The reason why we started making wheels was with the return of the balance frame, the 50/50 balance frame was a very specific frame, the first version. The second version is a little more lenient, but the first version, you could only fit 58 millimeter wheels on the outsides. You could fit 58s on the inside, but because the split wasn't so wide, it really was built kind of around a smaller wheel, like a 54 millimeter wheel or a 58 riding anti-rocker. And I was always asked, what wheels do I recommend for skating these frames? And I would have to come up with, well, this brand makes this wheel, this brand makes this wheel. And I'm like, well, why don't I just do it myself?
Right.
Let me make a wheel that would work well for skating flat on balance frames. And that's where our initial investment started. And that was the 58 millimeter wheel that we modeled after the face wheel, which is the face profile, which has the kind of like the pointy profile, but it's got a flat top. So when you wear, it wears to a nice rounded profile, but it is 58 millimeters and it is this nice angle, which means that when you're doing groove tricks on a ledge, you slide across the top of the ledge instead of sticking yourself. Like if it was a rounded
Right.
profile, you would
Hmm.
get wheel bite. If it's a more of a profile, it's just like big wheel skating. You do a magic slide or you do a parallel slide. That is the feeling that you get when you're skating these wheels. So long as you skate fast enough and you give yourself enough confidence and a little bit of wax, of course. And that was the same mindset. Well, if I need to sell frames, I need to recommend a wheel. Well, what boots do I recommend? Well, I need to make a boot so then I can sell the frames and sell the wheels to put on the boot. And I've gone through dozens of boots. And, I do a show every other week called Gear Talk, where I break down the weirdness of rollerblading because there are a ton of different things to consider in skating. And ultimately, after testing, 20 or 30 boots, it's come to my realization that there are a lot of boots out there that do one or two things really well. But I haven't found any boots that do everything really well. So if I could take the fit from this skate and the shock absorber from this skate and the Royale groove from this skate and the stiffness from this skate and merge them all together into a perfect skate for me,
Hmm.
then I feel like I would find the perfect skate for me. And I think there's a lot of people out there who think that way.
Well, yeah, I think. The thing is, the perfect skate for you. Everybody's feet is so different, right? So,
Hmm.
we had mentioned before the show with the new squays, the liner and
Yep.
the farmers. You
Yep.
thought they were a little bit uh, too much padding, right? A
Yeah.
little too thick, and
Hmm.
for me, I thought they fit perfect. Like
Yep.
like sticking my foot in a memory foam mattress. Like so, it's all different perspective. But I
Yep.
fully agree. Well, I don't think there's been a perfect skate ever.
Right.
I do think that they're getting more perfect over time. I've been testing a lot of skates, and I feel
Hmm.
like some of the skates now are very close to perfect,
Yeah.
but there's always at least one or two things completely wrong.
Yeah.
Um, I feel like with for example, like the icons.
Mm.
They made this really nice boot, but then they have the sill plate that doesn't look good on it at all. You got all that gap going around it. They
Sure.
have after riding for a while, like the straps on them, like they're kind of flimsy, after time.
Hmm.
But other than that, like it's really good quality, really nice. It's expensive. You would have think that they would have,
Yeah.
have made those things nice, and then or having a boot that's almost perfect, but it's like half size too small or like a size too small.
Yeah.
Um, Obviously, that's going to be issues. With width and stuff. There's a lot of issues. What's your skate going to be looking like width wise? Like a
Yeah.
wide footed skater, narrow footed skater?
So
What?
we are living in the future in this project. I've invested heavily into 3D printing.
Okay.
And if you're not super familiar with the technology, essentially you build a model in a 3D software. So we use Fusion 360. There are AutoCAD or Rhino or different software programs that you can use to build these things, kind of like how Pixar would make an animated model of, Buzz Lightyear or whatever. We would make a model and I can export that model, whatever it is. And so long as it's not too big, like my printer is 300 millimeter by 300 millimeter, so long as it's not too big, I can export it to a format that I can then insert a memory card into my printer. And it uses a a filament, and it goes and it starts printing every 0.2 millimeters all the way up. So it prints 2 millimeters of thickness, and then it goes up 2 millimeters of thickness all the way up. And what's amazing about that is when I have an idea for a product or just a random part, instead of just looking at it on the computer and then the old way sending this out, I mean, we wouldn't even do it like this. We would do hand-drawn or Illustrator or whatever drawings and send it over to a factory. The brilliance now is I can print out what this frame or part looks like, and I can put it on my skate, or I can, model it and put wheels in it or whatever and see, does it do what it's supposed to do? And that file that I create, I can send over to the factory and they can make a mold straight out of that file.
That's incredible.
So our first proof of concept here was the Compass frame. So the Compass is a big wheel company. We make big wheels, anything 72 to 110 millimeters. And we had the reverse, where instead of having frames that we wanted to sell wheels for, we have wheels, and we want more aggressive skaters to skate big wheels. I know you love, the mix of the two, where you can go out and skate big wheels, and then you can go out and skate aggressive. And it doesn't matter what size wheels you have on your feet, so long as you're out there skating, you're having a good time.
Right.
I feel
100%.
like one of the secrets to a long life is you don't skate aggressive every day. You've got to mix up every other session with some sort of a big wheel thing. I haven't skated big wheels in a while. It's pretty wet here, but I wanted to make a big wheel frame that fit the Compass wheels that UFS boots were compatible with. And we designed it in Fusion 360. I printed out a few versions of it, and those 3D printed frames, we were able to put wheels on, mount them to our skates, and go out there and skate them.
That's
and
really cool.
It was incredible. Now, they
Yeah.
didn't last very long.
Right.
They broke because the way that it prints, remember I was talking about how they do one line at a time. That creates, this between this line and this line, there's a weak spot. So they would always break right above where the wheels stopped and the base area mounted to the boot. It would just kind of pry off, because that's, when you're striding, you kind of put a little bit of pressure on the side. We can get to how I fix that in the future. But that was a beautiful proof of concept. And you could send that file to the factory, and 45 days later, I had samples of an actual molded part that was a frame. Now, for the boot, we're doing the exact same thing. Even better, though, I'm able to do a print of the boot and send it out to the team and say, hey, not only does this look right, but here's the liner that we're going to use. Put this liner in the shell that I just 3D printed and tell me if you have any pressure points. And they can point to the boot and they say, yeah, I feel a little bit tight up here, a little bit loose over here. I say, okay. I went to an event at the compound that Angie was throwing a couple weeks ago. And I brought the boot in camouflage tape so nobody could see what it looks like. But it was the actual boot. And I tried it on a bunch of different people, probably a dozen people, who all had or would have purchased a size 42 skate, which is the first shell that I'm working on. And I said, okay, try this on and tell me if you have any pressure points. And most of them didn't, but there were a few people who complained about pressure points, and most of them who complained were pointing at the exact same spot.
Okay.
So that was obvious that, okay, what if we just raise it? And it was, so if you look at the sways, it was this spot right here, which is pretty common on a lot of skates, where this toe box area is just a little bit too low. So we raised it up a little bit, and I got these drawings back after sending me to the factory and saying, hey, this is where we'd like to improve a little bit of the height. Got the drawings back, and we did another 3D print, and I sent them out to the team, and I said, okay, let's try this. And that was a week. So the initial drawings, from getting the initial drawings, doing a print, getting feedback, providing the feedback, getting a new file, and then doing another print was a week.
So that's mind-blowing.
Incredible. Yeah. Like,
when
in the past, it would be months before you get anything.
Months. When we were doing NIM, just, the sole plates,
like
you got to fly to China
to
even get anything done. you know,
Yeah.
because you have to look at it in person,
Hmm.
you know. So just the time and the money you save in the long run with that is mind blowing, and
It's
the amount
amazing.
of time you put into it. I mean, I feel like I don't know if the big guys are going to step up and do the same thing because it seems like it's the best way to make a skate that is actually
Yeah.
really good. That's like we said. It's find that perfect skate, make that perfect skate. Those guys have the resources, the money to make a perfect skate.
They have done it. So I remember John had a 3D printed version of the 909 when he first got it. And if you look at the Momentum video, you can see him holding it in the car, and it's like this 3D version of it. And I remember Rossi's did the same thing with the Fifth Element when they came out with it. Those were the most modern skates that I can think of, the plastic skates that they've
Mhm.
come out with.
Okay.
I don't know if they did that same technology for the Aeon. That was probably the more recent version of a new plastic mold that came out. But I don't know how much time they spent testing. For me, just having that model, I built the model. Like, I don't have to look at the model in person. This is a proof of, this is a way that I can test the fit. And I don't know that that's ever been done before.
No.
Trying it to different people,
Mhm.
sending it to different skaters and saying, hey, how do you fit? And we're only at the 42. Like, I've got to do the 3940, I've
Mhm.
got to do the 4344 and the 4546. So I've got 4 total shells that we're going to be opening at the beginning. Like,
Right.
who knows what the
I
future's
mean,
going to be like.
it's definitely easier for you to do that with having one skate. Like you look at Powerside that comes
Oh
out
yeah.
with 30 different skates at a time. Like they can't really focus that time on one of those skates, right?
Yeah.
Like you're able to focus that time so you don't make sure you don't get, make too many different skates, like
Yep.
whatever. Like but taking the time and waiting and releasing like an
Yeah.
awesome skate is going to be really exciting, and I'm excited to see that.
Hope
And
it
I
happens.
heard
Yeah.
about it.
Yeah.
Um, and I thought it was going to be a carbon skate, and it's
Yep.
awesome to hear that it's not,
Yep.
and that you're actually, with Ratel having one of the first skater-owned boot companies, but it was,
Yeah. Yeah.
an existing mold.
Yep.
Our dream was always to do what you're doing,
Yeah.
save up enough money for the mold, but obviously that never happened. So, to see you do
Sure.
that is like it's pretty much like the first. I mean, I guess Julio's done their molds, but
And I'll say
this,
there's always an asterisk, but Kato did the
yeah,
remedies.
I mean, but it's still like a soft. It was more like a soft boot, not
It's
really a hard. It's not a fully
Yeah,
hard
it's an
boot, right?
asterisk. Yeah, exactly. It's
It's
not
like, yeah,
fully what I would say as a shell, but there was the skeleton on the inside. So
mhm,
I think he definitely gets credit as the first plastic boot company from a skater owned company,
yeah,
and
yeah,
skater being a general term and
right.
everything, but from a contemporary, you know, successful fully plastic, John Julio is definitely
Well, I
the
guess
man.
you can also say, I mean, Power Slide. I mean, Matthias has been a skater his entire
You
life,
could
right?
definitely say power.
So
Yeah.
Power Slide is definitely skater owned, unlike other big brands, right? It's like the only big brand that's actually skater owned.
Yes, I think that's fair. Again, the definition of skater a little fuzzy,
Yeah.
but yeah, I would feel that. So you touched on carbon. We did look into getting carbon. The initial design was for carbon. Two reasons why I didn't do carbon. First, it was really expensive.
Okay.
I think the minimums would have been smaller. I wouldn't have had to open a mold. So there were a lot of benefits to it, but I had a hard time justifying bringing out another very expensive skate. You mentioned the icons before. I don't know what they were, 450 or something, boot only, something like that,
Icons
500
with
boot
boot
only.
only like $6.99.
So let's say it's $500. It's still
Mhm.
too much.
Yeah.
Um, I love Adapt. I skate Adapt skates. I absolutely love the Adapt. I've been skating the Brutales. I'm on the Sways right now, but I was on the Brutales for a long time. I skated the Stealth for a long time. They're a very expensive boot, $400, 450 or whatever. That's a little bit too much for me to bring something new into. Like I
Right.
want to try to get into the market that's, you know, standard pricing, like $300. That's where I think the real, hate to say real skaters, that's the wrong term, but that's where I think that we need more options. We do have a lot of options down there. Don't get me wrong, but I don't think that people want to spend $500 for a skate, especially right now.
Mhm. I
The
mean, I
other,
always feel
oh,
like
go
it
ahead.
though with those expensive skates.
Yeah.
is if you look at any other sport like cycling or
Yep.
it's like it's still nothing. Like
For
a
sure.
low quality bike or something is going to cost as much as a high end skate,
Right.
right? Or even skis or whatever. So people are going to buy it, and I feel like with people getting older and having careers, you have a lot more money now that can afford skates like
Oh,
that than you
sure.
did back in the day. But yeah, I definitely there's an option for it. And sorry
I
to interrupt.
No, no, I've heard that argument. I totally respect that argument. I don't know that it holds water when we're trying to get people into the sport.
Well, definitely not into the
You
sport. You always need entry
Yeah.
level, and
Yeah, you need
I
entry
think
level.
having an entry level aggressive skate
Mhm.
that's actually good
Yeah.
is important.
Yeah.
Because you have Rollerblade and K2 and Play Life, like they make all these low end skates, but
Yeah.
none of them have like a aggressive skate that's low end. Like
Yeah.
to get in.
It's very
Um,
recreational, which is fine, and I'm not saying that we could be low end, but
right.
it's a great goal.
It's just a
Um,
nice option to have.
yeah, I also don't know that we need to like the Colt is what 150 or something complete, 170 something complete. It's probably the least expensive of all of the skates out there. I mean, even the Sways are like 200 or something like that. I don't think we can get that low for a complete. We don't have their numbers. We don't have that, we've still got to pay off molds and everything, but it is a
Right.
nice dream. And I think that plastic is the way to go. And I made that decision pretty quickly that carbon would have been great, but it's very expensive. And I don't know that it's what I want to do. I think there's a lot of good carbon skates out there.
Are you gonna have your standard size runs? Like, what's the smallest you're gonna go?
Yeah. So the smallest is a 3940, which is a size
Uh-huh.
six. So it's a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10 and a half, 11, 12. So those are the
So
first four shell breaks.
So, maybe for the future, I don't know. But I've been talking to some younger skaters,
Mhm.
16, 18, who started skating when they were, 10,
Mhm.
9 years old, um, who had to start skating on like Transformers type skates,
For sure.
right? Absolutely hated them.
Yep.
And they feel like a lot of their friends would have stuck around skating had they had a better skate
Yeah.
for kids. And same for girls. There's a lot of girls with smaller feet.
Yep.
So having a skate like brands going even smaller for kids and girls, because I feel like most brands with everything marketing,
Mhm.
what they make, it's all targeted for adults, right? For the most
Sure.
part, there's very few core brands or within the industry that are actually making anything for kids or to people
Yeah.
to get people into the sport, right? Like little kids.
It's all a numbers game. It's hard, especially, our first run, we're bringing in 1,000 pair of skates.
Hmm.
It would be hard to justify bringing in, like if you were looking at a bell curve, right? That top of the bell curve is the size 9 and size 10 feet. And that's where most of the sales are going to be. And as it drops quick.
Right.
So, the size 12 skater is like, maybe 10% of, overall sales. What
Hmm.
would the size 13, 14 skater be? What would the
So
size 5, 6 skater be?
we had that issue with
Yeah.
Rat Tail.
Yeah.
Um, Now, if you're gonna, I guess it depends if you're gonna have the same skate coming out all the time, or you're gonna change your models every time. Then you can like kind of fluff and change in your
Yeah.
orders to make up for it. But we did sit on a lot of 12, 13s,
Yeah.
um, because one time they would sell,
Yeah.
right, and then the next time nobody really wanted them,
Yeah.
and then you got to close them out.
It's an
Um,
interesting, and again, this is all new to me. So anything that I say, I don't have any experience on, but I am a very keen industry watcher, and you can see the skates that sell and the skates that don't sell. And I'm very cautious to bring in too much of a non-standard skate. So, we'll always have a black skate, we'll always have a white skate. I think we've done that with frames, we do that with wheels. Like black and white are the standard. Anybody can pull off a black or white skate. When you get into colors, it starts to get a little bit more difficult. And those need to be smaller runs. And the
mhm,
reason for that is you just don't know what the market is.
right.
I don't know what a Mint SL market is. I don't know what the, Bobby Spazoff domestic punk, the first domestic punk market is. I don't know what the blue Clark's 909 market is. Like, those are skates that I wouldn't personally skate. Now,
Right.
I know there are people out there who would love them. And I'm a big proponent of color. All of our frames, we always try to bring out new colors with signature models and stuff like that. Those are going to be smaller runs. And the reason is I just don't want to sit on that product. But black and white, I think it's pretty consistent. Obviously, higher and smaller sizes are a longer tail that you can't sell through as quickly as the 8, 9, and the 10s. But to my point, that's where the size 13, 14 and the size 5, 6, I would love, or the 4, 5, I would love to do those because I know there are people out there, but it's a hard sell. When you're selling 1,000 skates,
You'd have to
and
have, you'd have to
yeah,
have commitments from stores
and
already
they're just not
to,
going to do it. Like if over my run I sell 5 or 10 of
Mhm.
those small sizes, like molds are tens to
Yeah, yeah.
$20,000. Like,
Right.
I don't know how many of those runs I would have to bring in to actually justify the cost of the mold.
That makes
Not to
sense.
say never, but
Right.
it's a tough sell.
Now,
Anyway, yeah, go
with
ahead.
the skates, is it going to be its own company or is it
Yeah.
going to be a 50-50 thing?
No, it's separate from 50/50. The reason for that is I want people to feel like they can skate them even if they don't like 50/50. We have our team already. One of the riders is not on 50/50. That's important. It shouldn't be there. It shouldn't be weird to have a signature skate that doesn't have that has a completely different frame. Like, I would love nothing more than to have a Kaiser frame on one of the boots, because I miss those days when USD Throne would come out and it would have wheels from Second Regime and it would have a frame from 50/50. And that is a huge deal. Like, it helps. USD has massive reach. It helps rise the tide for every other company that's contributing. So collabs are really important. When we do them inside the industry, having more awareness to different skaters, to different brands, that is a good thing. And I want to do that with wheel brands. We've done that in the past with Red Eye. We worked with Red Eye for 2 products now. We did the John Fromm frames and we did the Chris Farmer frames, and they both came with Red Eye wheels. We worked with Derek and put S9 bearings on Stefan's frames when he came out. It's important to me that we can promote other brands, because that, to me, is where 50/50 got its start, by raising awareness by being on all of these USD skates.
Right. I mean,
It's
that's the thing.
super important.
Back in the day, when we did, or with Razor skates and with NIM, it's like pros who had a pro wheel or they were sponsored by Ground Control or whatever, they would get their frame, their pro frame, or on the skate, they would have their pro wheel in the skate. Might be a little bit different graphic or something, but they would get something from it. You would have those brands.
Yeah,
and you haven't seen that really in years, of
it's been a
that
while
happening. So you would have, like, say somebody in your team skates for Wish, and you might get a Wish frames on there.
Yep.
Okay, so that's really cool.
Yeah.
So you're not just gonna, like, only your brands.
No,
You're open to working with other people.
No. Yeah, that's important. There will be a brand new frame that comes with it. So it's a stock frame. It's not a 50/50 frame. So if you buy a complete skate, it will come with a brand new frame that we've designed that will be completely new. It's important, it has to be distant from 50/50, because 50/50 makes frames, and we make great frames, but we don't make boots. And I don't want there to be any confusion there.
Well, I have a question about all the brands, but before I get to that, I want to thank everyone in the live chat. We've got 53 people here.
Excellent.
Welcome,
hey, everyone.
to the chat, everybody. And I hope you're enjoying this discussion. Make sure you hit the like button and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. The bell icon. Leave any comments you have. We really appreciate it, and it really helps us out.
Engagement helps.
Engagement helps.
Help a brother out.
And what I really am curious about for you, Lawrence, is it's a one-man show you're doing here with distribution. You got Chroma, you've got Compass, you've got 50/50. then a boot brand. You've got a family. You've got your normal life.
Yep. Real job.
Do you feel that some of the brands, once you add the skate company as well, will be getting a little bit neglected?
It's a good question. I definitely feel the neglect for Compass of all of the brands now.
And
It's
I
hard.
was going to bring that up because I feel like when you first started Compass and it was your only brand,
Yep.
there was a lot of hype, a lot of promotion. I saw it a lot, and I really haven't seen it. And it's almost made me think, is it still around?
Yeah. Compass is a hard brand to market. And we actually had, me and Hood Panda, we met up at the compound a couple of months ago. And we were talking about what do we do? And I think Guy Crawford was there too. What do we do? Like, how do we make Compass a thing? And I think traditionally it's been really difficult to promote big wheel skating, fitness skating, recreational skating, whatever. So there are a few buckets that big wheel skating fall under. One is the old rollerblade spandex fanny pack skating on the beach vibe, right? The other is a kid skating with his parents. The other is somebody who's skating really fast, just out in the middle of the nowhere, like just skating super fast. And then there was there's been a lot of attempts to make flow skating, big wheel skating, whatever, a thing. You know, right now there's wizard skating, which is kind of the new hotness of what you do with big wheels. Before then, there was maybe power blading, which was kind of like a big gap, sort of, maybe a little bit more parkour sort of vibe. I don't know how, personally, I don't know how to make big wheel skating cool, and I don't know how to market big wheel skating.
See, I feel like Undercover, Power Slide, does a really good job marketing big wheel blading. You know, they've got people like Nick Lomax. They've got, you know, a bunch of the girls that are for team. They do a lot of photos. They have really good photography. They do a lot of edits. They make it look cool, and it's a lot of work though, right? You're gonna have somebody going out there shoot photos, document it. You have to have the team, like, you know. So just promoting the brand because of the wheels themselves, like, it really needs an image. You know, you need to promote an image, which I feel like they can do with like Undercover stuff, just because they have the resources, right?
I would disagree, actually. I don't think Nick Lomax doing a Unity on a 3x110 frame does anything for big.
I'm not talking about the grinds on 3x110 frame,
but that's one of the things that they do.
Like, but more. I'm saying more so the shots of just skating, like, you know, on the boardwalk, and like,
I don't know. I still think, and go back to our previous 30 minutes, I think the best marketing for big wheel skating in the last 5-10 years has been Impala. I don't know how to do that. You know, they make skating look fun. They make skating look like a lifestyle. I think the way Power Slide, and I don't want to speak ill to Power Slide, I think Power Slide tries to market skating the way that they want skating to be.
Right.
And I don't know that hits the market. I don't know what the market is. Again, I don't have the answers. But the people who go out there and skate, I don't know that they respond to backflips in Barcelona. Like, I just don't know. Or Danny Aldridge doing, you know, his an amazing skater doing slides and stuff like that on the beaches. Or what's his name? The guy that skates through people with his 360 cam and almost runs into everybody.
Yeah.
I can't remember his name, but
I mean, some of there's definitely. The thing is, though, if you look at these people on some of the socials, you know, they got 200,000 followers. You know, some of the videos have millions of views, so it's getting out there. You know, I mean, it's amazing how many people, you know, like it.
For sure, it's converting though. I mean, Hood Panda skating naked on the freeway got a lot of views. I don't know that anybody about rollerblades because of it.
I mean, that's a different type of viral. You know, it's like more, and that's like
the question. And I don't know. Again, I would think, you know, that dude that got hit by the car when the car door opened and just, you know, what, like, we've all seen these videos. I don't know enough about big wheel skating to know what would work well as a promotion. So for Compass, it's a hard sell for me. So what I do is I focus on quality. You know, I try to make the wheels as good as they can be. I try to make them as available and priced reasonably. You know, we keep prices fairly low. We do sell a lot of the ready to roll setups. So those are the compass frames with,
Uh-huh.
a ready to roll 80 millimeter or 72 millimeter wheels with bearings. And it's kind of on autopilot, to be honest. I continue to bring in new products, new colors, new products, and new frames and stuff like that. We brought out the white frames, we brought out 76 mil wheels, but it's hard to devote time and energy to it when I don't really know what I'm doing. Like,
Right.
I know how to make good products. I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how to market those products in
Okay.
a world that I still don't, I don't respond to any of the marketing. I
Right.
think aggressive has been a lot easier for me because I know that market really well. I'm definitely an aggressive skater. I'm not a big wheel skater, but I love big wheel skating. So we've always marketed Compass as a brand that is for aggressive skaters who like to skate big wheels.
Right. That's the thing. When I started bigwheelblading.com,
Hmm.
I spent a lot of time. I went into it obviously from aggressive skating.
Hmm.
You know, coming from the '90s, early 2000s. Slalom was around back then. All that stuff, speed
Yeah.
skating, but none of us thought they were cool. None of them
Yeah.
thought we were cool.
Yeah.
Like it was just kind of like that's lame, whatever. It's just like the mentality of skateboarders, rollerbladers. It's like the similar thing within the same type of sports.
Yep.
Um, Obviously, it got changed with age and all sorts of stuff. But when I discovered my love of big wheel blading, I
Yeah.
want to find out more about the other disciplines. So I did a lot of research and found out about the skaters and the style of skating. And with big wheel blading was the goal was to kind of mesh the disciplines and
Hmm.
let them find out about us and show them what we do. And since then, I've seen a lot of slalom skaters go to aggressive.
Sure.
Aggressive skaters do slalom, like speed people, cross people doing marathons. I mean, look at all these aggressive skaters skating marathons these days.
Absolutely.
That would have never
Absolutely.
happened 10,
Yeah.
15 years, 20 years ago,
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah.
that's pretty cool. Yeah, it's just, I mean, it's marketing is a tough thing. And that's one thing, with Rat Tail, when we did Rat Tail,
Yeah.
marketing was something we were really good at. And, we created a following, like a cult following
Hmm.
with the brands, with Vicious and 4x4. Image was 50% of the company,
Hmm.
right? So it's, the wheels, like, wheels were maybe not that different from other wheels, but the
Sure.
branding and the art and the image and the lifestyle and people like tattooing the brands on them and like who they
Yeah.
are today. They're still the person they are today because of how the people, the writers and stuff in the company was back then.
No doubt.
And I feel like that can be done with a big wheel brand. It's just figuring out how to do it and having
Yeah.
the right people. You have to have the right people involved. I want to ask you with the wheels, like when we did 4x4,
Hmm.
we were selling sets of wheels for $27 or something at stores,
Sure.
and we were paying 80 cents a wheel back then. And I know
Sure.
now wheels go for $45, $48, and it's cost
Right.
between $3 to $4 per wheel
Right.
to make wheels. Which back then we didn't sell direct, nothing.
Right.
Everything was to stores. Now you see a lot more people selling direct to kind of counter that cost increase,
Yeah.
less in stores. How has that affected you? Like, having that the expensive cost of wheels, trying to sell
Hmm.
to stores, and then also trying to give royalties to riders.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, are you seeing is it a sustainable, like, to make money that way?
Sure. Yeah. So can't get into too many specifics, but I'll definitely speak in
Mm-hmm.
generalizations. Um, Wheels are friggin' expensive now, and they are more expensive now than they were when I started. They've probably gone up 20% my costs since I started making wheels. And there's a few reasons for that. The main reason is the urethane, the chemicals that they use for urethane. A lot of them during COVID were in short supply. I think my theory is that a lot of those plastics were being used for PPE, so making protective, the glass that you find at a shopping,
Mm-hmm.
checkouts line or whatever. We never had that, but now with COVID, every single shopping line, at every checkout has panes of plexiglass. You go everywhere, it's got plexiglass. Where does that plexiglass come from? Right, somewhere. Gas prices, gasoline going up, same sort of chemical thing. That is one of the ingredients that go into making urethane. So the wheels have gone up. The price that we sell in shops is, so most of my wheels sell for $40. So the Fitty Fitty wheels sell for $40. The Chroma wheels, which are the same wheel, same compound, but they are a higher quality print. It's a two-sided print, comes in packaging, comes with a sticker sheet, and it has a royalty for our artist as well as our skater. Those are $45 for a set of 4. For me, taking that price and working backwards and really looking at that, well, what as a skater, what would I want to pay for a set of 4 wheels? And as soon as it got over 40, I started saying, well, hey, it's starting to get expensive, because when I started back, you could get a set of Eulogy wheels for like $28 for a set of 4, something like that. And, higher end, like undercover wheels were like $40 maybe for a set of 4. And that's where we kind of set our sights are going to be. And when Fitty Fitty started with wheels, we were at 38 and we're at 40 now. And Chroma was at 42 and we're at 45 now. We look at that price and then we work backwards. So whenever a little bit of business dealing with shops, inside scoop stuff, when you sell a set of wheels for $40, the shop wants to pay $20. So they will pay what they call keystone, and they will mark up double what they pay for the product. So we sell a t-shirt for $10, they sell it for 20. We sell a set of wheels for $20, they sell it for 40. So that's where I have to land. So I look at that $40 and I say, okay, I think a $40 set of wheels is where I want to be for this product. That means that I'm at $20. I know that my wheels are going to cost me X amount, make the math easy, say $10, right? So then I have $10 that I can play with. Now, where does that $10 go? Does it go to packaging? Does it go to a skater royalty? Does it go to, the design, the print royalty? And then there's got to be some money for us to stay in business, right? I will tell you that Chroma doesn't make a ton of money from a direct to shops sales. It is really difficult because they are so friggin' expensive to make. I mean, think about all of the skaters. Like, we give $3 for every set of wheels, which was, I think we started with $2. We bumped it up to $3. $3 for a set of wheels for every skater. Plus, my wheel cost is still the same. Plus packaging, the boxes and the sticker sheets and the design and the artwork, and paying Jeremy. Jeremy Bytall does all of her artwork. So making sure that he gets paid for his work doesn't leave a lot of money. But we can sell direct. And by selling direct, instead of selling this set of wheels to a shop at $22.50, I sell to a customer for $45. Now, I don't sell as many of them direct. I usually say 25% of my sales are going to go direct and 75 are going to go to shops. And that's been a pretty good average for me. So on that average, instead of making, $10 profit for a set of wheels, I'll make $15 profit for a set of wheels.
Right.
That's a nice little benefit, right?
Mm-hmm.
Add to that, there are so many benefits to selling direct. I get paid immediately. I don't have to hunt down a shop and say, hey, you owe me money,
Which we hated with Rat Tail.
Which was the worst, because they're a business, but they're also your friends.
Mm-hmm.
And that they don't want to stiff you, but they don't have the money. Maybe the week is late. Maybe the month is slow. Maybe they've got a big shipment of skates that they have to pay for. Like, it sucks. So we give them net 30 terms, which means that as soon as we ship the product, the clock starts ticking. Within 30 days, they're supposed to pay us for the product that they sent over. Most shops don't. I'll be completely honest. They're usually a little bit late. And I've never had any issues. I've had a few issues. I'll take it back. I've had a few issues with a few shops. I've never had any crazy issues where we haven't gotten paid by shops yet. We
had that happen quite a bit with Rat Tail.
Right. It is
we even had
the worst.
We even had a distributor stiff us with a big amount of stuff.
And that will sink a brand. So for me selling direct, it is a little bit of insurance. Worst case, I don't let a shop have 2 orders out, right? So if you're past your terms, you don't get another shipment until you pay up. Worst case, I can still have customers come direct to get the products. Additionally, we sell a lot of different products. I don't want a shop to feel like they have to bring in everything. I want a shop to curate the products and only bring in stuff that speaks to them, that they think they can sell well. Nobody's going to bring in every single one of my frame walls and the cores and the hard, like we have 3 different color axles. I don't expect a shop to have all of the different axle options, but if a customer needs axles, or if they want to put together a custom setup, they can come to my website and they can get everything. And I'll say a teaser for the next 6 months. Imagine how customized you can get your skates when I also have a boot and a liner and a buckle and a cuff available. It's going to be really exciting to have a interface for somebody to go in, customize their skate to the perfect tee. Anything under our roof, right? You can put onto the skate and have this beautiful skate that is exactly what you want. Or
you have a skate builder on your website?
We will. Yeah, we will. Again, for the last 25 years, all I've done is build websites. So I'm pretty good at doing what I do. And yeah, we'll have a really nice website builder. We're looking at ways to make it flexible. And I want to make sure that this segment doesn't come across as I hate shops. I love shops. If we didn't have shops, we wouldn't have a thriving industry. No question about it. I like being in control of my cash flow. That is my biggest thing. I don't like putting all of my eggs into a shop's basket, because I need my money so that I can pay my writers, so that I can keep production going. And if they're having a bad time, that shouldn't reflect on me. It's not my fault, you know? Right. Even if they're selling my product, if it's a different brand that brings in a ton of skates that they have to pay for, I should still get paid. And sometimes I don't, and I get it. But I shouldn't have to suffer because of that. And that's where I'm at. The reason I brought that up, we will support shops. So I'm looking at ways that we can do this customized skate builder thing. And we're in Durham, North Carolina, which is a central area in the East Coast, but I do understand that there are skaters outside of North Carolina. We would love to, you know how you can buy something from Apple and you can have it shipped, or you can pick it up from the store. I would love to have a button that you could pick it up from the store. Right. And it would go to the shop, and then the shop would own that engagement. The shop would get a cut of the purchase price, you know, that way they wouldn't have to stock every single one of my items, but they could still support the brand. They could have a few ready config, you know, versions available in the shop, but they would have whatever the skater customizes, they could just have that. And then I just throw it in the mail, and then we both kind of share a profit, again, to help the shops. No inventory, no expense on their side. It's just free money, and they continue to get a customer.
With a pickup and shop option.
Yeah.
You're still going to be eating it on the shipping then, right?
Well, again, numbers are numbers.
Right.
Thankfully, the margins on a complete skate are much better than the margins on a t-shirt. So I could probably make the math work. These are all conversations that I still haven't had with the shops, but in the future, those are the sort of things that I'm looking for. There needs to be a shift in the way that we do skates. They can't, like we talked about earlier, having just a skate and then you finish your sandwich and you buy a new sandwich. That doesn't work anymore. That model is dead. And we need to think about it as this is a component system that you can replace the wheels, the frames, the liners, the shock absorbers, things like that, as they wear out, or as your style changes or your discipline changes. And physical brick and mortar shops, it's a hard sell for them to be that flexible, because they don't have, they can't have that much inventory. So there needs to be a way for brands to work with them on that. And that's something that I'm looking to solve.
Looks like in the live chat, you do have a lot of people who are down with the black and white skates. Cody Sanders says, I've regretted every skate purchase that wasn't black or white. And I personally have almost only skated black and white. These Farmer Sways are like a weird browny color. I like them. I do like some of these Rossi skate colors, and I like those, you know, them skate colors. I mean, I would skate them. I'm like not as picky. You know, I used to only wear black.
Yeah.
Look at me now. I've got like more earth tones, but
you look great.
Thank you. But yeah, and one last question on the costs of everything going
Yeah,
up.
of course.
Shipping, like getting your
Yep.
stuff. I know you get some stuff done overseas.
Yep.
How much has shipping gone up for you? Like, is that something that stays also the same, or is it also significantly changed?
Yeah, COVID killed us, man. We were so again, all these are fake numbers, but they'll give
Right.
you a good idea of what they are. Um, we bring in, say, to make the numbers easy, these are fake numbers, but say we bring in 10,000 wheels at a time.
Mm-hmm.
When you bring in 10,000 wheels, you put the wheels on a boat, and the boat comes from wherever they were made to wherever you are. That's if you're getting your wheels made overseas. We get our frames made overseas, wheels made overseas. They're not made in China. I know that there's a lot of stigma around wheels that are made in China. They're not made in China. They're made in Korea, which is where Samsung's from. So it's fine, I guess. I don't know. China, I haven't skated any good China wheels, but I don't see any reason why China couldn't be a good wheel supplier.
Right.
Anyway, when you ship from one place to another, they charge you, whatever the freight cost is. When we were at peak COVID, we were paying probably around 60 cents a wheel for shipping, which is madness. So on top of wheel costs going up, we were paying what, $2.40 or something to actually ship the wheels from the factory. Now our shipping costs are down to say 20 cents, 30 cents.
That's quite a bit.
It's double. Our
Mhm.
frame costs, same things. Backpacks, perfect example. I haven't brought in backpacks in years. The reason is the last shipment from backpacks that we get those made in the Philippines. Backpacks came in, and my supplier, raised their prices because the shipping was more expensive. And I'm like, cool, that's fine. Like, I'm trying to make it work. Ships the backpacks, and while they're in transit, there's some whatever delay or whatever, and the price goes up. So I have to pay more. So we had a contract that we had to pay this much. And you're like, yeah, we're gonna need to charge you $500 more for shipping because it's more expensive now. I'm like, what are you talking about? More expensive now? I already paid for like, here's the shipment. I already
That's
paid for them.
crazy. See, we
He's
made
like, yeah,
our
we can't do it. I'm
we
like,
did
all
our
right,
4x4 and vicious bags in Philippines. I mean, it's probably the same place.
probably the same place. Yeah, great
And that was
quality. We just
nice thing about being in San
justify
Diego
it.
is the shipping was cheaper because you're going from Asia to
Yeah,
the West Coast versus to the East Coast,
yeah,
which
it's
is
a
a
little more
lot
expensive.
further.
We do a few different creative ways. Like I've got a shipment that's coming into Charleston.
Mm-hmm.
They take the train from the West Coast to the East Coast. I've got another route that sometimes goes through the Erie Canal.
Okay.
So it goes all the way down South America and goes up into Houston, which is crazy.
Yeah, that's
They're
crazy.
really smart about routing.
Uh-huh.
During COVID, though, you can look at tanker costs. Prices got crazy, like probably 5 times what they were for shipping a container. A
What's
container is usually $2,500,
yeah.
and it was like 12 grand, something like that, which
Yeah,
is
I remember we paid
madness.
2,000 a container with
Yeah.
with NIM.
Yeah,
I read somebody saying theirs went up from like 2,000 to 20,000 for container.
Yeah.
During COVID. It's good to hear that it's going back down.
it's much lower now. It's much easier. I timed the skate thing pretty well, I think.
My opinion, with the economy right now, like when companies and restaurants and everybody's raising their prices, most likely they're not going to lower their prices again, even when supply gets cheaper. Do you feel like with the increase in your cost for wheels that those are going to be the price you pay moving forward, or do you think that they're going to go down at all again?
It's a good question. I don't know. I don't like charging people more than I would want to pay myself. And I feel like all of our products so far are at the lower end, if not the more like reasonable for what you get. And I think there's always a balance of buying something or just not buying it at all.
Right.
And some wheels now are really expensive, and I laugh because I can't understand why they would be so expensive. Skates, crazy expensive, and I don't understand why they're so expensive. Now, again, I can't speak to skates because I've never made a skate, not yet. But I sure as hell hope that we'll be able to land these skates at a reasonable price
Mm-hmm.
so that people can buy them and try them out. And I'll add, with the skates, we want to make sure that the pricing makes sense. One of the things that never made sense to me was how you could buy, say, a Razors SL, for example, pay $250 for Razors SL, or you could get it boot only for $230.
Right.
And it's like, what? Like, how does that work? Like, why would a boot only be $230 and a complete be $250? Well, there's margins and there's what the shop pays and all that. That all makes sense. But that's weird. Like, are you saying that this frame and these wheels are only $20? Like, that doesn't make sense. So we're working to make the pricing make sense. If a liner costs $60, if you buy our skate linerless, it will be $60 less. That's the way that it should be in my eyes. So I really like transparency in pricing. I think that consumers react really smart when you say, we're raising our prices and here's why.
Mm-hmm.
My shipping costs have gone up, my production costs have gone up, and I'm giving my rider an extra dollar.
Right.
And people are like, cool. I wish it was cheaper, but I get it.
Mm-hmm.
When prices just go up and there's no rhyme or reason, I think it causes a lot of questions. And to your point, I don't think that they will go down. It's hard to lower prices. Now, Powerslide has gone down in some of their prices. I know that there was some Aeons 2 years ago, I think, that were getting pretty high up there. I think they've stopped that. The Takeshi is what, $420, something like that. And it's an Aeon 72 ratchet buckle, second skin liner. Like, it's or a recall liner. It's a pretty high quality Aeon. Still $420 for an Aeon, which was supposed to be their cheap skate. But I mean, at least it's not 500. I could definitely see it being 500.
I feel like, Powerslide, I like a lot of Powerslide skates. I skate a lot of them.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of brands, but they make a lot of stuff. Look at Icon. They have all those frames and all those wheels and undercovers. Got tons of different, lines of wheels. And
well, Icon's Disroyal. Don't forget, Icon is Disroyal.
But still, it's the same. But it's the same, umbrella, and they're all competing against each other.
Yeah.
Right. It's all the same wheel, but it's pretty much all the same wheel.
Yeah.
And they have so many of them that I feel like, they made so much during COVID that now they're going to have to. It's more like, they've competed against each other a little bit too much.
Yeah. Well, and to extrapolate that a little bit more, I was talking about shops not being able to pay their bills. You look at the amount of sales that we're having on skates right now. There are so many skates out there. Boots are just a plentiful. And it's not because the brands didn't do a good job in creating cool products. It's that everybody who wants a pair of skates has a pair of skates. Like, if you already have a pair of skates last you a good, 2-3 years.
And a lot of people have, 5 pairs of skates or 6 pairs of skates.
Absolutely.
I know people that Valo, people who are fans of Valo, and it's the same with people who are fans of them.
Yep.
They buy every single skate when it comes out.
Sure.
They buy every one.
Sure.
Like, you don't do that with a lot of brands.
You don't do that.
Those brands with Valo and them, like, when a new them skates comes out, the fans buy them.
Yeah.
Right
Which
away.
is great. And I have the same sort of supporters with 50/50, with Chroma. I feel like there's a collectible vibe to some of these things. The problem is that shops maybe judged it a little poorly and ended up with so much product that now they're trying to get rid of it in a fire sale. And if it doesn't sell, that means that shops have a hard time bringing in new product, which means that the product is old, even though it's 6 months old, right? It's considered old and they can't sell it as quickly. So the more product flooding the market, the worse it is for shops. It's not great because they have a lot of options. It's bad because consumers go in, they don't know what to buy. They are getting some great deals, but they're not getting the margins that they need to stay afloat.
Right. Yeah. Times are crazy. So
it is.
Again, I want to thank everyone who's watching right now. We're at an hour and a half. I had a bunch of topics. We only covered a few of them, so we're not going to get to them all. Maybe Lawrence, would we be down for another of one of these shows in the future?
I could come back anytime, Jan. I'm always here for you.
So we'll do another one of these shows in the future.
Absolutely.
To talk about more stuff. I want to get one last topic in before we stop.
Sure.
But before we do that, I want to make sure if you're watching this, you enjoy it, hit that like button, subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, hit the bell icon, and leave any comments you have. Description below. Follow Lawrence on Back to Blading. I'll have links to his YouTube channel,
That's
his
right.
companies, his social media, all that stuff in the description below. Go ahead and follow Lawrence. He's doing a lot of cool stuff on the Back to Blading
Thank you.
channel. And Back to Blading is something I wanted to talk today to you about.
Yeah.
But we will talk about that on the next show.
All right.
We do. What I wanted to get to right now was the question you had for me.
Oh, yeah.
About clothing and blading with Rat Tail.
Yeah.
Go ahead and, what
Sure.
you want to know. Like,
so I think this is a really interesting one. And I think you are uniquely positioned to have an opinion on it. I don't know that you get a lot of guests asking you questions. So this is a good little flip the script on you.
Yeah,
we
for
just
sure.
brought in I should be wearing one, but I'm not because I'm really bad at marketing. We just brought in our Chroma China Wirestall shirts. So they are a beautiful blue shirt. It is a Comfort Colors shirt, which is a really high quality blank 4-color full chest print. We sell them for $30 in stores. They're expensive to make. They're probably more than they cost more than we make. But it's super important to me that we have t-shirts and clothing and some sort of items like that. And the reason is I want rollerbladers to feel like they are part of something. I love nothing more than to go to Disney World with my family. And every time that I do, I wear skating stuff every single day because I want people there to see it. And if they see it, and if they know what it is, they get that little, smile in the back of their head that they're like, hey, that guy, he's wearing a Razor's hat or something like that. I love that feeling. And that is something unique that you have, that you understand this world, that you could wear anywhere. Now, in the past, it was a lot easier. You take backpacks, for example. It was a lot easier to sell backpacks because my theory is our customers were younger. Backpacks, especially, they're going into high school or in their college and they need a backpack. I don't wear a backpack anymore unless I'm traveling, and I don't travel anymore. I wonder if t-shirts, clothing, things like that are being, I don't want to lead the question, but I wonder why t-shirts and clothing and stuff like that are not as popular now. If you go to Roller Warehouse, if you go to Inline Warehouse, if you go to Intuition, you don't see as many clothing companies as we used to have. Back in the days, we had specific clothing companies. We had 976, we had England Clothing, we had Jethro, we had Rise Above. We had clothing companies that were designed for rollerblading, that were marketed to rollerblading. All they did was clothing. I have a hard time thinking that could work nowadays unless it's a small thing, like how Basement does it, like how Borkland Zoo does it. I feel like there is a market for it, but I'd love to hear what you think about that.
I think
if you think it could work.
I do. Oh, Lawrence, did I lose you?
I'm here.
Okay.
If you can hear me.
I had it looks like the connection was bad for a second. So
no problem.
My opinion, first of all, when it comes to Rat Tail and the shirts and the image and the style we did a lot of that because even though there was a lot of clothing brands and a lot of brands in blading, we personally did not like the style and aesthetic of 95% of the companies in rollerblading at that time. And most of the brands at that time, the clothing brands, were targeting the rollerbladers of that time, right? The kids, they were young kids. They didn't really have their own style yet. You had these, and we were trying to target like the next generation of fashion, like their next evolution into adulthood, like how they're going to dress into adulthood, not how they're dressing as a child still, or like as a teenager. So when you look back at a lot of people look back at the clothes they wore, skating in the 90s, they're kind of childish, almost like the graphics and
totally,
and our thing was a lot focusing on art heavy, right? Using Baytall, using Chris Peel, using Adam Mara, using a lot of the artists we use. We want to do a lot of art on the wheels, on the shirts. We did limited editions Rat Tail shirts, hand numbered, things like that. And we would do, probably 8 to 10 shirts for 4x4 in a line. We did 4 lines a year.
Mhm.
So we did full, 6 wheels, 10 shirts, 4
Yeah.
times a year. And we'd had shirts, and with shirts, like the 4x4 logo shirt that Chris Peel
Mhm.
did. That was a shirt we made every run.
Mhm.
We probably sold 30,000 of those shirts over time.
Absolutely.
A lot of the Baytall shirts, depending on the art, we could tell, like, is this a graphic that we only want to do 72 of,
Yeah.
or is this we're going to do 300 of?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
So, I'd say about 50%, 60% of the shirts we did with Baytall on each line, we're limited to 72 shirts, and that's it. Because we did a lot of different shirts.
Mhm.
Some of them, there wasn't necessarily a lot of people into that style per se at the time,
Sure.
but it grew. And, we try to build a culture and a family of skaters with that image. Because if you look at, like, a lot of people who order 4x4 stuff, like,
Mhm.
if you look at them today, they're still kind of similar. Not all of them, but
For sure.
a lot of people are similar. There's not a lot of people similar, who were like, some of the second regime stuff or whatever, maybe as much
Right.
today. So I feel like targeting your clientele, like, who do you want to target,
Mhm.
and target them. You have to specifically target them and kind of build an image. I mean, it's a little bit harder because back then you could create stars in skating, right?
Right.
With the magazines, with the videos, you created stars. Now everything's social media.
Right.
So you have to go after more influencers, even sponsoring people. I don't obviously still sponsor anybody, but if you
Right.
look at skiing or skating, it's like skateboarding, like, they sponsor more Instagram skaters than they do,
Right.
like, it's just changed. So I feel like there's a market, and I feel like Mesmer
Mhm.
is doing really well with their shirts. They've built kind of what Rattail did
Right.
artistically, and I really like a lot of shirts. I've actually ordered a bunch of shirts.
Right.
I think obviously the Chroma stuff with Baytall
Sure.
is kind of an evolution, or kind of the next thing of some of the Rattail stuff. It's a little bit different. Style wise, it's a little bit different, but it's still the art.
sure.
It's still art heavy, and having good artists. And I think right now in skating, there are a lot of really good artists that are not being used for wheel graphics, for shirts. I mean, you have so many good illustrators.
For sure.
And, I think that's part of it. Like, I think a lot of graphics that, have been and are still kind of lame.
Yeah, for
like,
sure.
Even today, there's some brands like, I mean,
It's logo shirts, and
it's logo shirts, and
it's
it's
not
not
art.
good logos. It's like,
Yeah.
it's not good logos. It's like,
Yeah.
they got Photoshop and they made a logo,
Yeah. Because their
and
friend is a graphic designer
Yeah.
or something.
So, for us, like I said earlier, marketing, image,
Yep.
60% of the brand, like selling a look. And that's what made Rattail and Vicious, Vicious especially,
Right.
was very, very big.
Yeah.
So
So
with those shirts.
let me ask you this, and you don't have to be, again, fuzzy numbers. In its heyday, when you were selling thousands and thousands of 4x4 shirts, what was the breakdown between wheels and soft goods? Was it 50%? Was it more soft goods?
We did a lot of wheels. So
Okay.
when we talked about wheels, we were ordering 10,000 per wheel. So if we did 5 pro wheels and an anti rocker,
Mhm.
60,000 wheels.
That's crazy.
40, sometimes less. When we start doing more wheels, we do
Mhm.
less volume.
Sure.
But it's safe to say we do 8,000 wheels at a time,
That's amazing.
right? At 80 cents a wheel.
Yeah.
I know that A&D in Texas, wheel manufacturer, they're
Yeah.
charging $4 a wheel.
Yeah.
If you're getting minimums, $4 a wheel, that's over 4 times as much.
It's very expensive.
And we didn't pay as much royalties as people pay now.
Of course.
Which but we sold. What you're paying to make a wheel now is
Right.
what we sold into the store for.
Yeah.
Then.
Yeah.
So we did make a lot of wheels, and we did a lot of bearings.
Mhm.
In fact, we had really good distribution. And one thing that made Rattail really big
Mhm.
is our control of media, right?
Yeah.
We distributed one magazine, so we had advertising in one.
Right.
We were
Right.
distributed by BMag, so we had
Right.
advertising in BMag, right? And so we were like, basically controlled media to an extent,
Yeah.
and with distribution, our distribution was doing really well. So in certain countries, they would actually order direct. They would place their own orders with the factory and have containers shipped direct to them,
That's
and we would just
incredible.
get royalties.
Yeah. 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 That's
Right, so
incredible.
it's just royalties, and same with soft goods. They were made in Europe.
Yeah.
Bags made in France. Shoes. We had shoes made in Europe that
No
we never
way.
even saw. So a lot of it, the model went to a royalty-based model from manufacturing.
Right.
So,
Super smart.
and but it was the numbers. We had the shop Hawaii Skate in France
Sure. I remember
who
them.
would sell five. They would order like 500 sets of vicious bearings at a time.
Yeah.
One shop. At the same time, we had like Blades in New York who had multiple shops. They did big orders, placed a big order, a week later filed bankruptcy.
Jesus.
And then instead of sending the stuff back or whatever, they were clearing it out for like, $5 a set of wheels on their website.
Just
and we had, we had
all the shops.
Distributors stuff us. We had counterfeit shirts made.
Oh, wow.
Counterfeit shirts made in Argentina. Like if the 4x4 logo shirt.
Yeah.
We had one that had like the U.S. flag in it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Almost every country had shirts with the flags.
No way.
In it, right? All bootleg.
And you didn't authorize any of those, I'm sure.
No.
So,
and I know that was a big thing with Senate. Senate was heavily bootlegged.
Of
and
course.
Senate was even more so. With Senate, the success to Senate, in my opinion, is when Senate came out, there were so many little kids. Yeah. And everything was targeted to little kids. It was like cartoony. They had pencils. They had notebooks.
Crayola.
They had all this kid stuff. And like I mentioned earlier, nothing's targeted to the little kids right now. I always feel like there needs to be a brand, kind of like how Birth was, but done with more artistically, marketing wise, that just targets kids between 6 to 18. And everybody on teams in that age group, and you're making stuff for school. Because they taking the bags and everything to school. That's a lot of friends made got people to skating by taking that stuff to school.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And the thing with Rat Tail is we mainly did t-shirts. We did do cut and sew. We did the westerns for 4x4. We did cut and sew t-shirts for Vicious. Yeah. Our goal was to do pants, to do jackets. In fact, I pulled this out because I knew you were gonna ask this question. So this is a 4x4 jacket that never
awesome.
came out. So embroidery.
It's beautiful.
This is a label. I actually made this designed that label from back in the day for this.
That's awesome.
And this jacket is a mechanic's jacket. This was based off a 1950s mechanic jacket.
That's so nice.
And so what we would do is we go thrift stores, and we would find old pants and shirts.
Yeah.
All the shirts we did, like the westerns. We would take them to Lady. She would make patterns out of them.
Oh no!
Then we would get them. Then we would get them cut and sewn. And the goal was to do more soft goods, cut and sew. But what happened? Is NIM. Like NIM killed everything. Right? Yeah. All that money that went into NIM. Yeah. There's no money to for other brands.
For sure.
So, it kind of like all 4x4 and Vicious on their own were doing really well.
Yeah.
Vicious was doing better than 4x4 even. Vicious was like a big brand.
Interesting.
And purely based on image,
So do you think, and you mentioned Mesmer, I totally agree. I think Mesmer is spiritually the successor of NIM, right? In a lot of ways. I think them does an amazing job with soft goods as well. And they sell shirts and they have good artists and things like that.
Yeah.
All of these brands that you've mentioned are hard goods brands that sell clothing. They're not standalone clothing brands. And my question is, do you think a standalone clothing brand could have succeeded back then, aside from England and Jethro. Like, I don't know that, and I don't know how successful Jethro was. Do you think a standalone clothing brand could succeed now? Like, is there a
I
market
think it
for
depends on who does it.
it?
You know, I feel like a lot of brands that could have been successful weren't successful because the people doing it were young, or they didn't know about business,
Mhm.
or they were partying too much, or like they didn't focus their time, which
Right.
was the thing that in the 2000s, a lot of brands like, you know, Ratto, like all these, like there was not the pure dedication into just running the brands.
Right.
There was always the lifestyle and
Sure.
just not, you know, nobody went to school. Like now, you know, somebody like you who's got a career coming in with a more knowledge base,
Right.
if somebody wants to step in and start a, you know, artist start a brand now
Yeah.
that knows how to market, it could be successful. It's just who does it.
I think you're right.
If you don't know how to do it, you don't know how to market, you don't have good art, it's just not going to work.
Yeah.
But
Sorry,
someone could come in tomorrow with good ideas, good art, and probably have a really successful brand.
Yeah.
If knowing how to market it.
It's very interesting. And I bring the comparison to backpacks because I feel like the amount of times I'm very fortunate where I get to wear t-shirts all day. The amount of times where I get to wear a t-shirt, or, you know, I'm 46, right?
Me too.
Wearing a chroma t-shirt at work wouldn't fly. I could wear it skating, but it's not appropriate for corporate America. I feel like because like you said, our kids, we're now grown, and our main numbers are 25 to 40, you know, 8 or whatever, right? That's our sweet spot now. That group doesn't wear backpacks.
No.
We don't wear, you know, beanies. We have different taste in clothing.
I mean, I do wear backpacks a lot, but day packs, because I do a lot of trail skating.
Sure.
I do a lot of, you know, hiking. I use the same bag for a lot of stuff. So a nice day pack. I don't feel like making a skate bag. I don't think an adult is going to buy a skate bag, but a nice day pack that you can use that's more, you know, less logos.
Right.
You know, a lot of people buy backpacks, you know,
and I totally agree. I think the reason why somebody would buy a backpack from a skate brand is so that they could have skates involved. And backpacks being just an example, because I've done enough backpacks to know that the market is fairly small compared to back in the days. I think t-shirts might be a little less. Cut and sew, I think there could be a lot for that, but fairly big upfront costs, right? Fairly high numbers if you're trying to sell them to shops. That might be difficult. I commend, you know, them for doing pants. I know that Basement has done a lot of cut and sew. I know that Borkland did some cut and sew. I think there are glimmers of hope for clothing companies in the industry. I hope that we can do some more clothing in the future, because I'm a big supporter of wearing skating stuff, and I want to make stuff that's more inclusive, that more people can wear. Like this shirt, this is our subtle stamp shirt. It's just a small logo that's silk screened that I can totally wear in any occasion. I love that we can provide clothing like this for people who just need to go to work, but they're okay wearing a t-shirt, but they can't necessarily wear a Bytall logo, you know, which is an artistic, full, you know, oversized print, which I love, but it's a different environment, you know. It's going to be interesting.
You know,
I mean,
with
I'm interested.
The 4x4 Western shirts.
Yeah,
those are shirts people could have worn to work.
That's exactly it. Yeah.
There's
a market.
That jacket I have, you know, you could wear that to work.
Absolutely.
Obviously the crazy logos and stuff. But that's why knowing your audience.
Yep.
Or if you're targeting multiple audiences, you know, I mean, a lot of people still want to wear that crazy stuff, just can't wear it to work, like you said.
Right.
But they want to have some stuff they can wear to work. So having the options,
right.
It just really depends on who you want to market and then how to market it. But I do think that it's not out of question to have a successful clothing brand in blading.
I would love to see it. I can't wait. I can't wait to where, you know, we can see people wearing clothing from a company that doesn't make skates. You know, like that was going to be a day.
And hey, Robert Guerrero's in the house.
Yay, Robert.
Shout out Robert Guerrero. Shout out 50/50 for being from
There
San
we go.
Jose. There you go.
9
So yeah.
5, me skating home with my KFC from what was it, the corner of White and what was that street? Remember Jason Reduta caught me there. I was skating home with my whatever it was, box of KFC, and he was laughing at me.
That's hilarious.
I was on my skates. I didn't have a car at the time. So what are you
gonna KFC do? And skating reminds me of actually a funny story. Albert Huey, the Irish legend.
Yeah.
When he was young, he only ate KFC. And he would make his mom drive him to KFC for lunch and dinner every day. That's all he would eat. So that's pretty crazy.
Kids do that, man.
So, I mean, was there anything else on that question, or do we pretty much sum it up?
I think we're good. Yeah. I mean, again, appreciate your perspective. I'm looking forward to supporting more clothing. I think there is a untapped market of clothing for rollerblading. I don't know that it will ever be as big as Senate was, but I do think that there's a future of it, and I'd love to see it. I think your perspective
definitely not going to be as big as Senate, that's for sure. But
mushroom blading might.
I mean, another thing is, real quick, this is something we can talk about later. Yeah. I do feel like there's an option for having a brand that also targets quad a little bit, because you have a lot of rollerbladers who went to quad.
Yep.
And having a blader to quad type of, not actually sponsoring like quad people, but the blader to quad. I don't know. It's a thing that could happen. We could talk about it on the next show.
Yeah.
I'm gonna get together with Lawrence to figure out a date.
Yeah,
and I will let you know on this channel, on the Facebook. I have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, links in the description below. Actually, I don't have Twitter anymore, but I have Facebook and Instagram. I have links in the description below. You can click on those, follow, subscribe to this channel, hit the like button, hit the bell icon, leave comments, all that stuff. I have links to Lawrence's stuff in the description below. I do have a podcast happening tomorrow night on this channel. It's going to be episode 31 of the Dead Now Blading podcast with Michael French, legendary skater from Minneapolis, lived in Arizona for a long time. So he's coming on the show tomorrow night, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Lawrence, I want to thank you so much for joining me.
Absolutely.
On this show. It was a great conversation. I think I enjoy talking with you and Frank Stoner a lot. And maybe we can, I think if we can do one more show covering the rest of the topics.
Yeah.
And then getting Frank on, and all three of us can have a conversation.
I think that would be great. Yeah. Frank is fun. He's an old soul, but he's got so many stories, really great conversation.
I've had Frank on this show 3 times already. So
he's got stories. Tell you what.
Yeah, lots of stories. And I have a long history with Frank. We have a long history.
Absolutely.
Long past, maybe a little bit in the middle.
Yeah.
Missing, but yeah. So I'm really stoked. We had a lot of people, probably the most continuous people I've had on one of these live chats. So
thanks.
People love you, Lawrence.
Hey, I mean, I love you.
Oh, thank you.
That's that's what I do.
Cool. Well, everybody, goodbye. Take care. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you all back here tomorrow night for Michael French. Lawrence, again, thank you so much.
Thanks
Goodbye,
so much,
everybody.
Have a great night, guys.